How's it going, everybody? Yeah, so I'm gonna got set up, not to waste y'all's time. Let's continue on at Acts and New Living, chapter 7. Again, the New Living is the watered down version, but if it doesn't look right, we'll go to the King James. We read the Gospels and Revelation and Daniel in the King James because it's much easier to understand exactly what they're saying. And we do spot check in the King James, but we know if something is not correct in the New Living, then we go over to the King James. And if it still sounds weird, we take it to the original Greek and Hebrew. All right. Jacob heard that there was still grain in Egypt. So this is Stephen telling the story, Old Testament story. So he sent his sons, our ancestors, to buy some. The second time they went, Joseph was revealed his identity to his brothers, and they were introduced to the Pharaoh. And Joseph sent his father Jacob and all his relatives sent for them to come to Egypt. 75 persons in all. So Jacob went to Egypt. He died there, as did our ancestors. Their bodies were taken to Shechem and buried in the tomb Abraham had bought for a certain price, Hamor's son, from Hamor's son in Shechem. As the time drew near when God would fulfill his promise to Abraham, the number of people in Egypt greatly increased. But then a new king came to the throne in Egypt that knew nothing about Joseph, and the king exploited our people and oppressed them, forcing parents to abandon their newborn babies so they would die. At that time, Moses was born, a beautiful child in God's eyes. His parents called for him at home for 3 months. When they had to abandon him, Pharaoh's daughter adopted him and raised him as her own son. Moses was taught all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Now, just like Daniel was taught by the astrologers, the magicians and the astrologers, they just didn't take part in that paganism. And it was weird that the Lord also brought me through astrology. And I don't use that in my life today, but he had me learn it at the pagan Roman school that I was raised in. They had an astrology wheel on a paper stapled yearbook, late 60s, early 70s. And I took to astrology ever since. And I was, even though my so-called Protestant, because they believe in free will, my so-called Protestant friends would say, well, astrology is evil and you shouldn't do it. And I was like, well, my pagan Roman church is fine with it. You know, the ones that invented Christmas and all that other stuff. So I was just good with astrology. The Lord put me into astrology. It's very evil, but then he pulled me out of astrology. And but Moses was taught the wisdom of the Egyptians. So all their paganism, and I guess you learn it to know what not to do. And Daniel, again, in the book of Daniel, he was in charge of the astrologers. After, as a child, he was taught by the magicians, the astrologers. He was later in charge of them, but that was not the practice he undertook. Uh, all of his prophecies were given to him by God in dreams, not by any pagan means. Anyway, Moses was taught all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and he was powerful in both speech and action. if we read through it in the King James a little bit. But when Jacob heard that there was no corn in Egypt, he sent out our fathers first, and the second time Joseph was made known to his brethren, and Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh. Let's read the last two verses in the King James. And was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son. And Moses was learned in all wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in the words and in deeds. All right, we are now going to begin Revelation 21 study, just 6 verses in this column today. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself shall be with them and be their God. So now he's with them in the physical sense. It's no more in just the Holy Spirit sense. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. Now this has to be done because all sheep just witnessed their family and friends receiving judgment. Previous chapter. And there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying. So you just have to watch the previous 2 days study. Neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And at that point, I will tell you, you have no more memory of your previous life here on earth. All the sinful, all the friends and family that didn't make it, losing your virginity, all the sex, drugs, and rock and roll you did, touchdowns you scored, all your great moments that was just simply what God ordained would take place in your life. You know, that's why we don't have pride in anything, because anything we've achieved, God just had us achieve it. You see people walk around all the time full of pride because they feel like they've done everything that they've done, when in fact, it was just the Lord's plan. So he makes all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of water of life freely. I'm glad you're here. I love you very much. Ask questions anytime. That's what I'm here for.